Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Monday, April 27th, 2020. Today I'm going to recap days 2 and 3 of the NFL Draft, talk about last night's episodes of The Last Dance and American Idol, how MLB, NHL, and the NBA have paths to return from their coronavirus pandemic pauses and suspensions, respectively. The Bulls hire a new general manager, sports rewatches from the weekend, and my 2015 NFL ReDraft. All right, we're going to start recapping the draft of 2020, days 2 and 3. I'm going to go over all the picks from rounds 2 and 3, and then go over notable day 3 picks from rounds 4 through 7. Okay, Cincinnati went first in round 2. They take T. Higgins, the wide receiver from Clemson. I give that an A+. That gives Joe Burrow a weapon there. Indianapolis takes Michael Pittman, the wideout from USC. I give them an A-. Detroit takes DeAndre Swift, running back from Georgia. I give this a B- solely because there were significant needs on the lines that they had to address. I understand the sexiness of a running back, but you already have Kerryon Johnson. I guess they don't feel good about him and his health. So I give that a B- just for that reason alone. The New York Football Giants get a steal at Xavier McKinney, the safety from Alabama. I give that an A+. New England goes with Kyle Duggar, the safety from Lenoir-Rhyne. I give that a C, only because there are better safeties on the board. I just don't think Duggar was worth a day 2 pick. To me, he was a day 3 player. And I just feel, coming from a small school, he's a little unproven. So I give them a C. I felt that Grant Delpit or the kid from Minnesota would have been better selections from New England. If the Giants didn't take McKinney, I'm convinced that New England would have taken him. That's for sure. Carolina goes with Yetur Gross-Matos from Penn State, the defensive end. I give that an A. Carolina, after that, went Miami. They took Robert Hunt, the lineman from Louisiana. I give that a C. They're a better lineman on the board. Although I like Hunt. But I don't love him. Like I loved a lot of other guys that went in front of or behind him. Houston goes with Ross Blacklock, the defensive tackle from TCU. In the pick they got back from the DeAndre Hopkins deal, they get a B. The Colts go with Jonathan Taylor. They trade up for Jonathan Taylor, the running back from Wisconsin. They get a B. I thought they had bigger needs. But they're going all in with Phillip Rivers with those 2 picks. The Bears, with their first pick, go with Cole Kmet, the tight end from Notre Dame. They get a B-. They have a lot of tight ends on their roster, but none of them are good other than Kmet. And they had to address offensive line or secondary, in my mind, or I should say cornerback, really. But I understand the need at tight end, even though they signed Jimmy Graham, but I feel that Jimmy Graham's been washed for 5 years. Cleveland goes with Grant Delpit from LSU. That's an A+. A theme is Cleveland's obsession with LSU because they took Greedy Williams last year in the second round, traded up for him. And here they go with LSU safety Grant Delpit. They get an A+ for that. Tampa Bay goes with Antoine Winfield, the safety from Minnesota. They get an A-. Denver goes with KJ Hamler, the wideout from Penn State. They get a B+ on this because they could have gotten a receiver later on. And I understand that he's building Elway. He's building around Drew Lock. But Denver, I felt, had to address a couple other needs, maybe in the secondary a little bit, maybe even some linebacking help would have been nice. But I understand the commitment to building around Drew Lock, so I gave them a B+, and I like Hamler a lot. Atlanta takes Marlon Davison, the defensive end from Auburn. They get an A. Seattle goes with Darrell Taylor, the defensive end from Tennessee. They get a B. Pittsburgh goes with Chase Claypool, the wideout for Notre Dame. They get an A. Chicago, with their second rounder, go with Jalen Johnson, the cornerback from Utah. They get an A. Dallas goes with Trevon Diggs, the corner from Alabama. They get an A+. So 2 talented Alabama secondary teammates fall to teams in the NFC East, as those NFC East teams in Dallas and New York take them. with Diggs and McKinney, respectively. Rams go with Cam Akers from Florida State. They get a B. Philadelphia with, I think, the most questionable pick of the second round, going with Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma. They get a C-. I understand the Carson Wentz is injury prone and they really don't have a true backup. But they had other needs. Like, they had to address the safety position. They had to address a couple other things. They could have traded back. They could have gotten some help on the defensive line, or especially linebacker. Zach Bond was still on the board. So they really, I feel, missed an opportunity here to fill a need, and instead they reached for a quarterback that I feel is a little bit overrated because of the talent was surrounded around him at both Oklahoma and Alabama, especially on offense. Buffalo takes A.J. Epineza from Iowa. They get an A+. That was a first-round talent that fell to them. Baltimore goes with J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State. They get a B+. So Dobbins and Mark Ingram together with Lamar Jackson. Raekwon Davis from Alabama, the defensive tackle, goes 56 to Miami. They get a B+ for that selection. Rams go with Van Jefferson, the wideout from Florida. They get a B-. Minnesota goes with Ezra Cleveland, the tackle from Boise State. They get an A. Denzel Mims goes 59th to the New York Jets. And the Jets get an A+ on that pick because they needed a wideout, and they lucked out that Mims fell this far to them. The Patriots go with Josh Ochi, the edge rusher for Michigan. They get a B-. I just felt there were better players on the board. Tennessee goes with Kristen Fulton from LSU. They get an A+. They could have gone with him in the first round, but he fell to them in the second round. It felt like the A.J. Brown situation all over again from last year. Green Bay goes with A.J. Dillon from Boston College. I give them a C+. And that's because they really didn't need a running back. They could have gone wide receiver. They could have gone linebacker. Zach Bond was still on the board. Kansas City at 63 goes with Willie Gay from Mississippi State, the linebacker. I give that grade a B. And Carolina at 64 goes with Jeremy Chin, the safety from Southern Illinois. I give that a B+. I have my theory on non-FBS players, and that's why that grade was a B+. And I understand the need at safety. Cincinnati in the third round goes with Logan Wilson, the inside linebacker from Wyoming. They get a C+ on that one. I just thought that they should have gone with Zach Bond. Like, he was still on the board. Washington at 66 goes with the kick returner, wide receiver, running back Antonio Gibson from Memphis. They get a B. Detroit goes with Julian Okwara, the edge rusher from Notre Dame. They get an A. The Jets at 68 go with Ashton Davis, the safety from Cal. They get a B. They don't need a safety. That's why that grade's low. Seattle at 69 goes with Damian Lewis, the guard from LSU. They get a B. Miami at 70 goes with Brandon Jones, the safety from Texas. They get a B-. 71 Baltimore, Justin Matabike, the defensive tackle from A&M. They get a B+. Arizona at 72 goes with Josh Jones, the tackle from Houston. They get an A+. Borderline first rounder, falls to them in the third round. Jacksonville at 73 goes with Davon Hamilton, the defensive lineman from Ohio State. They get a B-. New Orleans at 74 goes with Zach Bond from Wisconsin. They get an A+. Bravo Saints, getting somebody to fall to you at 74. Or they traded up for him. Detroit at 75 goes with Jonah Jackson, the guard from Ohio State. They get a B+. Tampa Bay at 76 goes with Keyshawn Vaughn, the running back from Vanderbilt. They get a B. 77 Denver goes with Michael Ojimita, the corner from Iowa, they get a C+. Atlanta at 78 goes with Matt Hennessy, the center from Temple, they get an A. The Jets at 79 go with Jabai Zuniga, the defensive end from Florida, they get a B. Vegas with back-to-back picks, 80 and 81. Lynn Bowden, the kick returner, versatile offensive player from Kentucky, B-. And Brian Edwards, the wide receiver from South Carolina, get a B. Their defensive needs, I thought, so those grades were lower for that reason. Dallas at 82 goes with Neville Gallimore, the defensive tackle from Oklahoma. They get an A. Denver goes with Lloyd Cushenberry, the center from LSU. They get an A. Rams go with Terrell Lewis, the edge rusher from Alabama. They get an A. Colts go with Julian Blackman, the safety from Utah. They get a B. Buffalo goes with Zach Moss, the running back from Utah. They get an A-. New England 87 goes with Fernie Jennings, the edge rusher from Alabama. They get an A-. Cleveland at 88 goes with Jordan Elliott, the defensive lineman from Missouri. They get an A. Minnesota at 89 goes with Cameron Dantzler, the corner from Mississippi State. They get an A. Houston goes with Jonathan Grenard, the outside linebacker from Florida. They get a B+. New England at 91 goes with Devin Asai, the tight end from UCLA. They get a B-. Baltimore goes with Devin Duvernay, the wideout from Texas. They get an A. Tennessee goes with Darrington Evans, the running back from App State. They get a B+. Green Bay goes with Josiah DeGuara, the tight end from Cincinnati. They get a B. Denver goes with McTelvin Ajim, the defensive tackle from Arkansas. They get a B-. KC goes with Lucas Niang, the offensive tackle from TCU. They get an A. Cleveland goes with Jacob Phillips, the inside linebacker from LSU. They get an A-. Baltimore, Malik Harrison, the inside linebacker from Ohio State, A+. Giants at 99 go with Matt Pert, the offensive tackle from UConn. I give this grade a C+, only because I felt that they should have gone with the pass rush with this selection, or a different offensive lineman. There were better linemen on the board. I think Pert, he's from UConn. UConn's been a bad program forever, and they're no longer in the FBS for football after moving to the Big East. But Pert is not bad, but I just felt that they should have gone elsewhere with the selection. And this guy will take a couple years, so that's why they get a C+ for that selection. Vegas at 100 go with Taylor Muse, the safety from Clemson. They get a B-. The Patriots at 101 go with Dalton Keene, the tight end from Vatech. They get a C. Pittsburgh 102 goes with Alex Highsmith, the outside linebacker from Charlotte. They get a B-. Philly at 103 goes with Davian Taylor, the outside linebacker from Colorado. They get a B-. Rams at 104 go with Terrell Burgess, the safety from Utah. They get an A. Saints 105 go with Adam Trotman, the tight end from Dayton. They get an A. And 106 with the Ravens go with Tyree Phillips, the offensive lineman from Mississippi State, and they get a B+. All right, notable round 4 through 7 selections. Carolina went with Troy Pride, the corner from Notre Dame. I liked that selection. Harrison Bryant's a nice player from Florida Atlantic, but Cleveland already has 3 tight ends. They have him, they have Njoku, and then they just signed Andrew Thomas, so I didn't get that selection at all. The Jets go with Michael Pirine from Florida. I guess he'll back up Le'Veon Bell. The Colts go with Jacob Eason from Washington. I think Eason was a day 3 pick, but I don't understand why somebody didn't pick Jake Fromm up in the 3rd round. We'll get to that in a little while. Pittsburgh goes with Anthony McFarland from Maryland in the 4th round. Jets take James Morgan, the quarterback from FIU, I guess to back up Sam Darnold. Because Sam Darnold, don't forget, last year had mono, missed a couple of games, and their quarterback play without Darnold was just terrible. Buffalo goes with Gabriel Davis, the wideout from UCF. Minnesota went with Troy Dye, the linebacker from Oregon. The Rams take a tight end, Bryson Hopkins from Purdue. That's weird because they already have 2 good tight ends on their roster. It's similar to the Browns thing. They really didn't need that. Raiders get a steal in the 4th round with Amik Robertson from Louisiana Tech, the corner. Washington gets a steal in the 4th round with a comp pick of Antonio Gandy Golden from Liberty. 5th round, Giants I thought got a steal with Shane Lemieux, the guard from Oregon. I wonder if they're going to test him out at center. So they really prioritized protecting Daniel Jones in this draft. And I noticed that with a couple other teams. Minnesota prioritized their secondary and replacing all those guys that left, like Rhodes and Waynes and Alexander. Carolina went with Kenny Robinson, the safety from West Virginia that was in the XFL. The Jets with the steal in the 5th round go with Bryce Hall from Virginia. Tampa got a steal in the 5th round with Tyler Johnson from Minnesota. Miami got a steal in the 5th round, Curtis Weaver of Boise State. Jacksonville got a nice player, Colin Johnson, the wideout from Texas. Green Bay went with Kamal Martin of Minnesota. I thought he had some moments last year. Dallas got a steal with the last pick of the 5th round, a comp pick, Bradley Anae, defensive end from Utah, who should have been a day 2 pick. 6th round, I like Denver's selection of Natane Muti, the guard from Fresno State. He should have been in the 4th round, or even on day 2 in the 3rd round. Cleveland, I like the Donovan Peoples-Jones pick from Michigan. Buffalo drafted a kicker, Tyler Bass from Georgia Southern. New England wound up drafting a kicker in the 5th round, Justin Roswar from Marshall. They needed a kicker. I actually wrote that on my needs, so I understand them drafting one, but they should have waited till like the 7th round. I don't like when teams take punters and kickers in any round other than maybe the 7th. You had the Eagles in the 6th round take Sean Bradley from Temple, so that's a pretty fun story that a Temple kid gets drafted by the Eagles. Baltimore in the 6th round took James Proch from SMU, who had moments in college. Philly also got a steal in the 6th round, Prince Tega Wanogho, the tackle from Auburn, who should have been a day 2 pick. That's amazing that he fell. Round 7, notable picks. The Giants in the 7th round took Carter Coughlin out of Minnesota. Had some good moments with Minnesota. I don't think he's related to ex-Giants coach Tom Coughlin. There's a lot of questions about that on the internet on Saturday. Cardinals go with Eno Benjamin from Arizona State, so that's pretty cool that he gets to play close to where he went to school. Benjamin had moments. He should have been picked in the 5th round, so I think the Cards got themselves a steal. So it's him and then obviously Kenyon Drake in their backfield, assuming that Benjamin makes the team. Tennessee took a flyer in the 7th round. Cole McDonald of Hawaii had some moments the past few years for the Rainbow Warriors, quarterbacking them. The Bills go with Dane Jackson from Pitt. He had some moments. Vikings take a shot at Nate Stanley, the quarterback from Iowa. Oh, in the 5th round, I missed this one. I mentioned Jake Fromm. The Bills took him in the 5th round, which I think is a steal. There's already jokes on the internet that he's better than Josh Allen. He had a better college career than Josh Allen, but I don't know if he'll be better than Josh Allen on the NFL level. If anything, I could see a world where the Bills trade him to another team and he becomes like a Nick Foles type of quarterback where he bounces around because of his potential. And then the Mr. Irrelevant pick by the New York Football Giants went with Tate Crowder, the linebacker of Georgia, which was pick number 255. So this was a fun draft. Tomorrow I'm going to do my draft grades podcast, go through every team's draft class and give them a grade on their draft performance. So that should be a lot of fun. Now I want to talk about a couple NFL trades that happened over the weekend, especially on Saturday. The biggest one, Trent Williams goes from Washington to San Francisco for a 2021 third-round pick and a fifth-round pick in 2000, or from this year. So the Redskins used that fifth-round pick this year, and then they get a third next year. I think that's a steal for the Niners. He'll really help them. Obviously, Joe Staley came out and said that he was retiring after the Redskins made that deal, and they obviously knew that prior to making this deal. When I saw that San Fran acquired Williams, my first initial thought was Joe Staley's retiring. That was my initial thought because they were not in the conversation for him. The rumored teams were like the Jets, the Minnesota Vikings, New England, I guess, was sort of in the mix. I heard Raiders thrown out there. I heard a lot of random teams thrown out for Trent Williams. He would have been great on Minnesota, but they got a steal in the second round with Ezra Cleveland, so that took them out of the consideration. Although if they traded that pick to Washington for Trent Williams with something else, then I think the Redskins would have gotten good value if the Redskins took Ezra Cleveland in that spot. But no. I think that the Redskins could have done better in that Trent Williams deal. And obviously the other subplot to this is that Williams reunites with Kyle Shanahan, who used to be on the Redskins coaching staff with his dad, Mike, earlier in the 2010s when he was coaching in Washington. The 49ers were also pretty active with players that were on their roster. They traded away Matt Breida to Miami for a fifth-round pick. I think that's a great trade for Miami. So you have Breida and Jordan Howard in that backfield. Breida is somebody that really showed flashes. So now the Niners running backs are Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman. So the Niners were able to afford to get rid of one of those, and I'm good for them for getting value, although it wasn't really great value. They took a lineman with that pick they got back from Miami. So I like that deal better for Miami than San Francisco, but I understood why San Francisco did it. And also they stole Trent Williams from Washington, so I can't fault them for that. And then the Niners were involved in another trade as well, as they traded away. Who did the Niners trade away? I need to think of that. There's another Niners trade. But I know the Jets traded for Colts cornerback Quincy Wilson for a 6th-round pick. Quincy Wilson's okay. I feel like he's mediocre. He's not really all that special, but good on Indy for getting a 6th for him, I guess. I know the Jets were kind of desperate looking for a cornerback help. They stole Bryce Hall in the 5th round. So that's obviously really good for the Jets. But the Jets really didn't have to give up much for Quincy Wilson. The other Niners trade, I just found that it was Marquise Golden to Philadelphia. I like that deal for Philly. They need some help at wide receiver. I don't know if Jalen Reagor will help them right away. They want to get rid of Alshon Jeffrey. Deshaun Jackson, I don't think will be back for them in 2020. So I like that depth piece for Philadelphia. And I think the Niners got back a 6th for him and then maybe a future 2021 pick. So, that was a good trade for Philly. So I think the Niners had a really nice weekend. Obviously, they stole a lot of headlines by acquiring Trent Williams. And there were rumors that they were going to trade away some of their players. You heard Kawhi Alexander and Dee Ford mentioned in trade rumors. But the problem there is that they have really big contracts. And I don't know if they would like to deal him. And they also have Jerick McKinnon, who they overpaid for a couple of years ago. And he really hasn't seen the field because he's been so injury prone. And obviously McKinnon was somebody that had an impact on the Vikings and was a third-round pick, and then the Niners just go and overpay for him, and they never really used him. I think they're trying to get rid of that contract, too. So they have a couple heavy contracts on their books. To me, the only real untradables on the Niners are obviously Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Bosa, probably Deebo Samuel, because I think they're relying on him to be a number one for them down the road, or at least a co-number one. And then they have Ayuk, who they probably won't deal away anytime soon. So any of those guys they just picked, plus Deebo Samuel, I guess the two running backs, Mostert and Coleman, are keepers. Obviously Jimmy G, I think, is the most player on the Niners that they don't want to trade. They love Jimmy G. Although they did consider Tom Brady, and there were rumors that they were gonna possibly deal Garoppolo back to New England if they were able to get Brady. So that would have been a fun subplot, the Brady for Garoppolo swap. If Garoppolo was on New England, they probably would be like a fringe playoff contender, probably battling for that last wild card spot in the AFC, because I think the Niners have much better talent around them than the Patriots do. And Jimmy G took that team to the Super Bowl. I personally think that Jimmy G is a little underrated now, and he gets too much blame from that Super Bowl loss. But Patrick Mahomes is just so special, and he's just unstoppable. So, I can't really say that the Niners entirely blew that. You give the Chiefs credit for coming back, in my opinion, especially against a talented defense like San Francisco's. Okie dokie. Now we'll talk about last night's episodes of The Last Dance. The third one was a lot about Dennis Rodman and his days with the Pistons, and how he came over to the Bulls, and how Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause had a meeting with him, and they were talking about how the city of Chicago is, whether they'd accept him or not, and they were fearing that he wouldn't be accepted and loved in Chicago. But that turned out to be untrue. Chicago loved him, and they embraced him on that team. So that was a really good episode. And then the fourth one was a lot about Phil Jackson and his career, and how he started off with the Knicks, and then he was a college coach for a little while. Then he was an assistant on Doug Collins' staff. That was another subplot of these episodes. A lot of the Doug Collins era with the Bulls and Jordan, and how Doug Collins deep down thought that Phil was going to be the coach. And Phil was on Doug's staff in Chicago. And then after their Eastern Conference Finals appearance in 1990, lost to the Pistons, they wound up, or was it 1989? It was something, I think it was 89. They fired Doug Collins after an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, which probably was undeserved at the time because they made the Eastern Conference Finals. But they got rid of Doug Collins, and then Phil's the coach. The rest is history, and then came the dynasty. So, and Doug Collins, I thought, was always underappreciated as an NBA head coach. He did really well with the Bulls. He coached Washington with Jordan when Jordan was on Washington for that hot minute. And then he coached in Philadelphia, the 76ers, for a couple of years. They were a fringe playoff team. They made it a couple years in a row. Lost to Miami that first year, and then that second year under Doug Collins, they upset the Bulls, but that was courtesy of Derrick Rose being injured. And then they take the Boston Celtics to 7, and that Boston team was aging at the time. They had some injuries. I think Jeff Green and I think Avery Bradley were injured too in that series. And then that same Celtics team took the Heat, the LeBron James Heat team, to 7. That's ironic that the two LeBron James Heat teams that won the title were taken to 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals by the aging Boston Celtics with Rondo, Pierce, Allen, and Garnett. And then the next year with that up-and-coming Indiana team with Paul George, Roy Hibbert, George Hill, David West, Lance Stevenson. So, that's kind of a funny subplot. But yeah, Doug Collins, I thought, was an underappreciated NBA head coach. And I think he was working in the Bulls organization. And then I guess he got sick or something because he really hasn't been heard from other than in this documentary. And I know he was on ESPN for a couple of years, and then he had a role in the Bulls front office. So I really don't know what he's up to these days, Doug Collins. So he was really involved in those episodes last night from The Last Dance. Next week's going to be fun. Kobe Bryant's going to be in next week's episodes, and that's what ESPN sent out as a teaser. So that's obviously very, very enticing, and it's probably going to be emotional for a lot of people because Kobe's probably interviewed in this, and obviously these interviews were done before he passed away because David Stern speaks in the documentary, and obviously David Stern passed away before Kobe Bryant, and Jerry Krause passed away before both of them. So yeah, so it's going to be an emotional episode next week featuring the late great Kobe Bean Bryant. Now I want to talk about American Idol from last night. Great episode. They did their performances from home. The judges were all quarantined, and Ryan Seacrest was quarantined. So it was pretty neat, and then they're letting America vote for the top 10. Cammy Gabriella went first. She performed Leave Me Lonely by Ariana Grande. I thought she did okay. Jovan Webb did A Little Help with My Friends by Joe Cocker. I thought that was an excellent performance. Franklin Boone did Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Tears. I thought he did pretty good. Olivia Exemes did Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. I was very impressed with that one. I was not expecting her to go Billie Eilish, but here we are. Louis Knight went with If the World Was Ending by J.P. Sachs featuring Julia Michaels. I think Louis did a nice job. Michaela Phillips did Greedy by Ariana Grande. I thought she was okay. Elena Jester did Run to You by Whitney Houston. I thought she did a good job. Faith Betznell did River by Bignan Briggs. Bignan Briggs, I thought she did okay. Nick Merico did Hey There Delilah by the Plainway Tees. I thought he did well. Lauren Spencer Smith went with Mama Knows Best by Jessie J. I think she did good. Sanaya Elise went with Warrior by Demi Lovato. I think she did well. Francisco Martin really blew me away. He took it up Katy Perry's route. Teenage Dream. So I think it's kind of cool sometimes when the contestant sings songs by the judges. You saw that even in the Simon, Randy, Paula era where somebody would sing Forever Your Girl by Paula Abdul, or when J-Lo judged the show, you would hear somebody sing Jenny from the Block. So you've seen a lot of these singers go with a judge's song, and I've seen it the most with Katy. Although I did see it a lot with Paula back in the day, sometimes with J-Lo. I've never heard anybody sing a Lionel Richie song. I saw people sing Keith Urban songs when Keith was a judge on the show. I've seen people perform Aerosmith songs when Steven Tyler was a judge on the show. A couple people sang Luke Bryant songs this season. So yeah, I was really impressed with Francisco going with Teenage Dream by Katy Perry, and even Katy enjoyed it as well. Sophia James, formerly known as Sophia Wackerman, she changed her name for whatever reason, performed Burning by Maggie Rogers. Dwayne Crocker Jr. was great. He performed I Feel Good by James Brown. Arthur Gunn performed Lovin' Machine by Wynonie Harris. I think he did well. Julia Giordano performed Human by Christina Perri. I thought she was great. Grace Lear did Cry by Faith Hill. She really brought it. Just Sam, I thought, had the best performance of the night with Believe by Fantasia. She really, that song really fits her well, and she really, I felt, put her heart into it. And Johnny West went last, and he performed What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. A beautiful rendition of that song. I thought he did very well as well. So it's going to be a hard choice for the top 10, in my opinion. I'm going to predict who makes it on Friday's podcast before the next Idol episode. So keep an eye out for that. Now I want to talk about how sports have paths for returning in wake of the coronavirus pandemic. Baseball is hoping to have a plan soon, and they're eyeing the end of May to have the plan in place for the start of the 2020 season. I think that is good news. I think Rod Madford is very motivated to get baseball back. The Arizona, Texas, Florida plan seems like a realistic plan because those states' totals are going down. So I could see a world where those 3 states, maybe a couple other states, are involved in this as well. And I think something that's in play is that they do this new baseball thing, and then once the postseason comes around, which I don't think we'll have a postseason until November, I think they'll push the playoffs to November, then you'll see fans in the seats in their home stadiums. Like you'll see October baseball, or I should say fall baseball, at Yankee Stadium, and fall baseball at Dodger Stadium, fall baseball at Citi Field perhaps, or Atlanta, St. Louis, Chicago, wherever, for whomever makes the postseason. The NHL is working on a comeback as well. There's talk about a new playoff format. They really want to get this done and over with. Emily Kaplan and Greg Wyshynski of ESPN reported that something could be coming soon. There's no schedule yet, but a format is taking shape. They discuss in a column where fanless games might be played. I think Atlanta, if they still had the Thrashers, probably would have been in play for this, but who knows? I know the latest rumors that they want to use their own arenas. It's probably going to be the Canadian arenas, such as Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Vancouver. I think all those arenas are in play. I think the Coyotes arena is in play. Maybe the Golden Knights, but I doubt it because the NBA wants to go to Vegas. So I don't think Vegas is in play for the NHL, but you never know. The NBA is a league that they're motivated to come back. They are really motivated to have a resolution. They'll probably have their own cities as well. I think they probably will work with the NHL and probably do something separate and be in separate cities as them. And then you'll probably have both leagues' drafts in August. Maybe September 1st free agency for both leagues instead of July 1st. So you'll have free agency right around Labor Day weekend. Or no, that wouldn't be Labor Day weekend. It would be the Tuesday before Labor Day weekend for September 1st. And then you'll probably have the draft, maybe the NBA draft on August 27th, a Thursday, and you would have the NBA or the NHL draft on August 28th and 29th. That would be a Friday, Saturday combo. Now I want to talk about the Bulls hiring their new general manager. They make it official last night. They name 76ers SVP Mark Eversley, and he'll be working under Arturas Karnavas. I think that the 76ers front office, I think they get too much heat because they overpaid Tobias Harris in the trade, and then they signed him. They let go of Jimmy Butler and overpaid Al Horford. I feel like they get too much heat, but they really have done a great job rebuilding that team. The process, they lucked out with Ben Simmons in that lottery, and then Embiid, it took him a couple years to get healthy from those injuries he had in the middle of last decade. But I think that front office did a good job. So I think the Bulls are really setting themselves up pretty good for the long run. They have some young players that I like, Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr., Kobe White. And then they'll have another lottery pick this year, although it'll be in the double digits, which, unless they get lucky, they probably couldn't really afford to be there because their talent's nice, but none of them are really franchise changers. Like, they don't have the Zion Williamson or John Moran or even R.J. Barrett on their team that really is getting people super excited. I don't know if Kobe White could become that or not. Before I get to my NFL redraft of 2015, a couple sports rewatches that were on over the weekend. 2006 NBA Finals Game 6, the Heat win their first title in franchise history. Dwayne Wade, Shaq, Pat Riley. And in that season, Stan Van Gundy quit, or he got fired, and Pat Riley took over midseason, and then they went on that run and won that championship, which was obviously their first in franchise history. And then their third title in franchise history came on right after that on ABC yesterday. It was Game 7 of the 2013 NBA Finals. We talked about that Heat team a little while ago on the show, and I've mentioned on this show several times over the last couple weeks that they came darn close to losing to the Spurs if it weren't for that Ray Allen shot. Greg Popovich really screwed up by not having Tim Duncan in there. That cost them perhaps a rebound. So Chris Bosh gets that offensive rebound, dishes it out to Allen, hits the three-pointer. Rest is history. Heat come back and win that series. 2018 Stanley Cup Final Game 5 between the Golden Knights and the Capitals. That was when the Capitals won their first ever Stanley Cup. Ovechkin wins his cup, and then 2019 Game 7 between the Blues and the Bruins, and the Blues win their first ever Stanley Cup. 2015 Spurs Clippers Game 7. That was obviously the game where Chris Paul hit the game winner against the Spurs. 2015 Rockets Clippers Game 6. That was the game where the Clippers had the big lead. It looked like they were going to the Western Conference Finals. They blow it. Rockets come back and win that game. And there's people that even say had they closed out Game 6 and won that series, they could have taken the Warriors to 7 or even upset them and ended up in the NBA Finals. I don't know if I agree with that. 2015 Cavs Bulls Game 3. That was Derrick Rose buzzer beater 3. Bulls go up 2-1. And then that was their last, I almost said their last playoff win, but that's not true. They did win a couple playoff games. I believe it was in 2017. They made the postseason when they had Rondo and Wade. They beat the Celtics a couple times, and then they wound up losing that series. So, the Bulls ended up going up 2-1. And then that next day was Game 4. It was on Mother's Day. LeBron James hits a buzzer beater. That series is tied at 2. And then the Cavs close them out. 2010 Packers-Patriots. It was a Sunday night football game. Matt Flynn performed and had a great game for a backup quarterback. That offensive lineman, Ryan Connolly from New England, I believe. I don't know if he had a return for touchdown or had a long kickoff return, but that game is remembered as the Ryan Connolly game. And I know he did something that got the fans excited for New England. That goes down as the Connolly game for them. And then the Matt Flynn game for Green Bay. And I think New England wound up winning that game. It was a high-scoring game. And I think the Matt Flynn thing. It's funny with Matt Flynn. He was regarded as the best backup in the league behind Rodgers. And then he had that great performance in Week 17 in 2011 against the Lions. And then they trade him to Seattle. Seattle drafts Russell Wilson and beats him out for that job. So there's a little bit of history with Matt Flynn, obviously. And then 2015 NBA Finals Games 2 and 6. Game 2, Cleveland won in Golden State without Irving and Love. And I think that was the game Irving got injured, if I'm not mistaken. And Kevin Love was already injured because he got injured in that series against the Boston Celtics in the first round. And then Game 6 was where the Warriors clinched. Andre Iguodala was the undeserving Finals MVP, in my opinion. It should have been Curry. To me, best player on the team should get the Finals MVP. That's just my rule. He just had one good game, which was Game 6, and that won him the MVP. To me, Steph Curry was the best player in that series. So he deserved the Finals MVP. Just like Kobe Bryant was the best player in the 2010 NBA Finals in that series. So that's why he won that MVP, although he had a bad Game 7, but he was good in the other games in that series. All right, last but not least, my 2015 NFL redraft. This was fun to do. This draft was actually pretty deep. At first, it didn't look like it, but there was a lot of diamonds in the roughs in some of these other rounds. So, without further ado, here we go. Number 1, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jameis Winston. No do-over here as they get their guy in Winston. I think that Winston is still a Buccaneer if they thought that they didn't have a chance at Tom Brady. That's just how I feel. 2, Tennessee, Amari Cooper. Yes, I have them taking Amari Cooper here instead of Marcus Mariota. I don't remember who their actual quarterback was at the time. I think it was either Jake Locker or Hasselbeck. So instead, I have them taking Cooper to be their wide receiver 1 for years to come. 3, Jaguars go with Danielle Hunter. So Hunter goes to Saxonville. So him there would have been different. Maybe they don't sign Calais Campbell away from the Cardinals, and maybe they don't acquire Marcel Darius either. So there's a lot of what ifs with that one. Raiders at 4 go with Marcus Peters after Amari Cooper's taken second. He would have been a nice fit in that secondary. 5, the Redskins go with Brandon Scherf, so no do-over there. 6, New York Jets go with Byron Jones. That would have been a really good selection for them. Number 7, the Bears go with Frank Clark. He would have been a fine player for them on their pass rush, and maybe they don't deal all those picks for Khalil Mack. 8, the Falcons go with Tyler Lockett. Imagine him with Julio Jones in that offense with Matt Ryan. The Giants at 9 go with Eric Kendricks, who has turned into a really good player for the Minnesota Vikings. The Rams at 10 go with Eric Armstead, who really came into his own this year with the 49ers. 11, the Vikings go with Grady Jarrett. He would have been a nice partner with Linval Joseph on that defensive line. The Browns at 12 go with Trent Brown. He would have been a good pick for them. 13, the Saints go with Todd Gurley. At the time, the Saints were looking to help build around Drew Brees. He certainly would have been a good weapon for him. Dolphins at 14 go with Landon Collins. He would have been a nice building block in the secondary at the time. Chargers at 15 go with Bernardrick McKinney, who the Texans stole in this draft. The Texans at 16 go with Devontae Parker. Imagine Parker and DeAndre Hopkins in the Texans offense together. 49ers at 17 go with Eddie Goldman, who the Bears stole in this draft. 18, the Chiefs go with Kawan Alexander, someone who was a really good player for the Bucs and helped the 49ers this past year, although he's overpaid. 19, the Browns go with Jaquizy Tart. an underrated safety with the Niners. 20, the Eagles go with Zadarius Smith, who is a really solid pass rusher for the Packers. The Bengals at 21 go with Adrian Amos, the safety. He would have been a nice player in that secondary. 22, Pittsburgh goes with Trey Waynes, who was a solid player for Minnesota, and then they let him go in free agency. The Broncos at 23 go with Melvin Gordon, and that's ironic because Melvin Gordon's on that team now. And at the time, they were trying to win for Peyton Manning, and he would have helped Peyton Manning in that offense that next season. 24, the Cardinals go with Demarius Randall, who I think is a little underrated. 25, the Panthers go with Preston Smith, who else I think is underrated, had a great year with Green Bay this past year. The Ravens at 26 go with Trey Flowers, someone who hasn't made a Pro Bowl. I think he's just overpaid. He probably should have gone higher than this. But like I said, I just think he's overpaid and is on a bad Lions team. So I guess he gets punishment for that. Cowboys at 27th go with Bud Dupree. He would have been a great fit on that team. 28, the Lions go with Ali Marpet, the really good offensive lineman from the Bucs. The Colts at 29 go with Shaq Thompson, who is an underrated player on the Panthers. 30, Green Bay goes with DJ Humphries, so they would have gotten Aaron Rodgers some protection there. 31, the Saints go with Donovan Smith, who would have given good protection for Drew Brees. And 32, the Patriots go with Rob Havenstein, who is a solid offensive lineman for the Los Angeles Rams. That's it for the show today. I'll be back tomorrow with my top 10 artists of 2017, the latest news with the coronavirus, 2015 MLB redraft, and a lot more. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.